Welcome to the Limitless Energy Podcast. My guests today are Graeme Bell, writer and international overlander, and Jon Turner, founder and chief engineer at Nimble. So let's talk about overlanding. I'll let Graeme start off here, since this is something that you do for most of your time. How do we are used to RVing here. So obviously we've done a lot of electrical work when it comes to a recreational vehicle, getting out on the road, even boondocking. How is overlanding different?
You get different types of overlanding. I think that's important for many people to realize. Some people are part-time overlanders. Some people are aspirational overlanders, and others like me are extremists, and we're full-time overlanders. And that's what I've been doing for the last 11 years, full-time.
So let's define overlanding.
You know, with the growth of the popularity of the activity, let's call it that, the parameters have changed. I mean, back in the day when I started overlanding, it was usually guys in 4x4s with roof tents that were doing that. That was what it was. But I discovered in South America, when we shipped our Land Rover there from South Africa, that there were people that were driving all the way down from Alaska, well, the USA, from the lower 48 to Argentina in a schoolie.
Right.
And you ask, well, is that overlanding? Well, sure, by definition, it is, right? It is, indeed. Obviously, that it's, again, when you try and define overlanding, you then look at, well, it's vehicle-based, but a lot of people would define it as being four-wheel drive, as in 4x4, as in going off the beaten track,
Right.
and exploring and testing your own capability and your own vehicle's capabilities. Where I think when it comes to international overlanding, it doesn't matter what you're driving, it's the fact that you're just doing it. Yeah, this is kind of why I don't like trying to define it.
Okay, so maybe we won't try to define
I can define what I do.
Okay.
All right.
Let's start there.
Okay, so I'm an international overlander. My family and I, together with our children, we took them out of school, got in our Land Rover, and we left home.
And how old was Jessica when you started?
Jessica was 4. No, she was a little bit older. 5 or 6, yeah. And we circumnavigated South America. We drove from Cape Town to Dar es Salaam. We drove through the Amazon. We went from Argentina to Alaska. That's how we travel. That, to me, is what my brand of overlanding is, as an international overlander.
Okay, so Jon,
Yes.
you well, first of all, let's talk about Nimble vehicles. What is special about what you're doing?
So, as Graeme said, there's lots of different types of overlanders, and so we cater to the overlander who really wants to go off the beaten track. So we build on pickup truck chassis. So we're not building on a huge vehicle chassis. We try to fit as many creature comforts into our vehicles as possible. So we do hand laid, hand constructed builds to a very high specification, and they aren't for everyone. But what's great about overlanding is that, and no matter what price point, no matter what budget, no matter what your aspirations are, you can find something that's going to fit for you. And we honestly fit towards the higher end of successful couples who have had a successful life and want to get out and see the world, but still have a taste for some of the good life. And this allows them to preserve that on the road, going to these really wild, interesting, out of the way places.
So this is not glamping. This is right. I mean, this is, you're building a vehicle that needs. It's not as much luxury as much as it is the ability to get to places you normally couldn't otherwise.
Right. Well, luxury to us means having a bed, and having an induction cooktop, and having a refrigerator, and having 75 gallons of water, which means you can take a hot shower when you want to, and having a toilet, and having these days a DC air conditioner, because that technology has changed, both storage and also DC air conditioner. So there's a lot of comforts that you can take along the road that just contribute to your enjoyment.
I can add to that as well, because we've been using, my wife and I, and actually my kids as well, have been using a Nimble for the last year. And what's beautiful about the Nimble vehicle is that it gives you the capability to go out and stay out. And we see a lot of vehicles which have similar comfort, but They're very tall, they're very wide. And the beauty of the Nimble is they have the roof that comes down. So we were doing trails near Tulum in Mexico, which other vehicles couldn't go to. But we could squeeze through there. We got a bit of pinstriping. He's forgiven me. But we didn't get to the beach. Up goes the roof. I've got, 75 gallons of water. I can stay there for 3-4 days, 5 days if I want. Tons of storage, etc. So, yeah, I think that's definitely, it's the luxury to go out there and stay out there.
So, by the way, I love that. So, Graeme, you've been doing this for, you said, 11, 12 years now.
Full-time, yeah.
Full-time. Yeah. But you've been in a Nimble for about a year now.
That's right.
So how did you meet Jon? I mean, why did you select this vehicle? Was it because it was you could get around easily in it?
Yeah. I tell you, well, it's a long story. All my stories are long, so you just got to bear with me.
We've got a few minutes. I mean,
all right. So my family and I, we just finished doing West Africa in our Land Rover, and we fixed her. She broke a few times, and we managed to fix her up, and then we got stuck in South Africa with COVID. And we were itching. After 6 months, we were like, we need to get out of here. So we very responsibly traveled around Southern and East Africa during the pandemic. And we came back to South Africa, and the whole idea was we were going to try to get from Cape Town to Vladivostok in Russia. We actually left during the pandemic, and we couldn't get through. We had to return.
Which, by the way, is incredible. From Cape Town to Vladivostok.
Yeah. It would have been awesome. And it wasn't COVID that stopped us. It was the situation in Ethiopia, the civil war there, the Tigray region. That's what actually put the brakes on us. And we spoke to a friend, and we were like, well, we're kind of cooling our heels here. We don't really know what to do with ourselves. And he says, well, you love America, go to America. So we thought, okay, fine. So booked a flight, managed to get in here, and borrowed an old Range Rover Classic, and bundled the whole family into that and drove up and down and all around the U.S. And then I was speaking to Jon. I'm like, look, we got a few months left here, and he's like, well, you can use my Nimble. I'm not using it at the moment. And we went from that Range Rover into the Nimble Proto, which is the prototype vehicle. And what a game changer. All right, the whole family's smiling all of a sudden. There's space, there's indoor plumbing, everything that you need, and everyone was quite enamored with the vehicle very, very quickly. And it just opens up so many opportunities for travel. And we kind of fell in love with it. And I don't know how we got to talking about it. I remember, actually, I think we were driving along, and I was like, hey, Jon, I could drive this thing to Russia. And he goes, okay, well, why don't you? And, oh, you're kidding. And he wasn't kidding. He was serious. And next thing I know, we chatted about it, and we sorted some things out, got the logistics all lined up, and we were heading down to Latin America.
So where have you taken this Nimble to so far?
So far, we drove her down from California over to Nevada, down to Baja, California, up and down and around Baja, across to mainland Mexico. Quite an extensive tour of mainland Mexico. Then we crossed into Guatemala. We're a few months in Guatemala, then into Belize. And unfortunately, we wanted to go all the way down to Panama, but we had to turn around because we needed to get visas for the U.S. And as South Africans, it's difficult for us. And we ended up having to return to Mexico so that we could get visas so that we could return to the U.S. And that's basically it. But that's over the last year. That's what we did with that.
Is that your typical customer, Jon?
Our customers do travel internationally, but the difference between the U.S. and the rest of the world is the vastness of the U.S. Because it's really, you think of it as 50 states, 50 different countries in completely different locales that you can go to. And so it's possible to be a pretty much an international overlander and never leave the USA, because you can drive 3,000 miles in one direction and still be inside the USA. We just have such a wealth of beauty and different locales to take advantage of in the U.S. that people do that. But we have units in Australia, we have them in South America, we've had them in Africa, we've had them in Europe. So they do get around. COVID has kind of cramped a lot of people's style on that the past couple of years, but we will have people kind of launching out on those trips again.
That's funny because domestically COVID kind of helped that
Yeah.
that whole activity, right? I mean, everyone
Yeah.
decided this is the thing to do, is to
Yeah.
get out of the cities and do
Yeah.
this.
Well, it's if you got a camper, that's like a hotel. It's a hotel with social distancing, right? Because you've got a camper, you've got your bed, you've got your shower, you've got your kitchen. You're this little encapsulated COVID sphere to protection.
Obviously, I'm interested in the electrical system, and right now the Nimble has what is it, 3 GC3s?
3 GC3s.
3 GC3s. Is this what your model has, or was that before the GC3?
No, he has 4 of the GC2s. So the ones that we build now are the GC3s and all Victron systems. And then we were using Dometic as a very nice DC air conditioner we're putting on the roof. And that works really, really well, especially when you're in parts of the U.S. that have high humidity. Air conditioning, not such a big deal if you're in Nevada, but if you're in Florida, as you learned in your Range Rover.
Yeah,
All right, I would have killed for some AC.
if you're in Belize, I mean, how did that go?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And actually, fans are almost as good as AC. As long as that air is moving, you can breathe. If the air stops moving, you can die. It feels like you're gonna die.
Right.
Yeah.
What has the system allowed you to do that maybe you weren't able to do previously?
It's liberating, is what I would say. Is that, for instance, we went down, Louise and myself, we dropped the kids off in Oaxaca in Mexico. They're now older, tired of traveling. They spent their entire lives traveling the world. Poor kids. I feel sorry for them.
Troopers.
Yeah, shame. And we went off and had Christmas and New Year's on the beach in Baja, in the middle of nowhere. We could see another overland vehicle over there in the distance. We stocked up with charcoal, wood, meat, everything we needed. And we could get onto the beach as far as we wanted to go. The vehicle's got all the lockers. It's got all the capability to get down on the deep sand to where I want to go. And then it gives me the opportunity to stay there. And obviously, our needs have changed as we've traveled. We were really analog in the beginning. We had a dual battery system and a fridge, and I think that was the extent of our electrical requirements.
And now you have Starlink.
Now we have Starlink. Now I've got deadlines. Now it's a different ball game. But I can sit out there, middle of nowhere, go fishing in the morning, come back, hook up the Starlink, get the solar coming in, cook myself some breakfast, do my work. So it's really liberating to have the systems that allow you to engage in the activities that keep the dream alive.
So has that fundamentally changed overlanding recently with the onset of lithium and bigger electrical systems?
So I can answer that. I think it has because I've dealt with both. I've had campers with 840 amp hour AGM banks, and now I have a 800 amp hour lithium bank. Because whatever can be done can be overdone is one of my mottos, right? But with lithiums, you don't have that anxiety with AGMs, because AGMs, you draw that $2,000 bank down below 50%, and you're like, have I hurt my batteries? Right? But with lithiums, you just don't have to worry about it. So it gets rid of all of that anxiety. It's the kind of one less thing to worry about, right? Because even if you do discharge them all the way, you just charge them back up again. And that's a very liberating thing about the lithium product compared to the lead acid, in my opinion.
Sure. Well, I mean, you're not going to get an argument from me
Right.
there.
I would have been surprised.
Well, it's for us, we've been doing this a little while, and it's nice to hear different applications.
Yeah.
And we've obviously been in contact with a lot of overlanders over the years. And so it's interesting to me to hear how it used to be, how it's evolved.
Right.
And Graeme, you're a writer. You write about it. And in your writing, have you written about this evolution? Have you had a lot of interest as to how your equipment has progressed over the years?
Yeah. To be quite honest, I'm not really into tech. I'm not interested in tech itself. I'm more interested in what it can do for me. My son's very different. He's a hyper nerd. He lives for tech.
I can relate to him.
He lives for
You're surrounded by engineers here. So,
Right,
yeah.
right. But I have seen the evolution. I've seen how it's changed. I've seen how overlanding has changed and how technology has changed with it. And some of it can be over the top, but it all depends on the application. It's what do you need? It's not about looking at what John's got and saying, I got to have what John has, because your needs might not be the same as John's. I now need Starlink. I need power to run that. I need power to run my computers. I have to have my cameras charged. I have to have everything running for me. It's different to how so I've evolved. My needs have evolved, and luckily the technology has come along with
So
me.
you think your needs preempted the evolution of the technology? Because what we found is people are like, wait, I can do this. Now I need an air conditioner. Now I need a microwave, or
Right. Yeah, to a degree, because I live and work on the road. I see that the tools that are now available, they're just so liberating and important to me. And I don't know if I could do it without them.
Well, it's made your work easier, I guess.
Right. And Starlink is a huge part of that as well. And you're going to see how the entire industry is going to change just with the introduction of Starlink. We saw it already in Baja, for instance. Hundreds of vans, hundreds of trucks, hundreds of overland vehicles. And I would say easily 80 to 85% of them would have a Starlink sitting outside.
Right, which they have to power.
Which they have to power.
Yep.
And the longer they can power that Starlink, the longer that they can work remotely, the longer they can stay on that beach and pay zero rent, the happier they're going to be. The more it's going to change the dynamic. So I think if you take the combination of your technology with that technology, and you're going to see the housing crisis, pandemic, it's all coming together. And when people would look at this boon in overland travel and car camping or whatever you want to call it, it's not something that's going to go away anytime soon. If anything, it's just going to become more and more and more popular.
I agree with you. Yeah. Well, let's talk about your next trip. You're going up to the Arctic.
That's right.
Why?
My Land Rover, I love her. Her name's Mafuta, which is Swahili for oil. And if you know anything about Land Rovers, you'll know why. That's how you check a Land Rover in the morning. You look underneath her first for the oil patch. So Mafuta is a Land Rover Defender, which I converted into a camper for a family of 4. It's a robust utilitarian vehicle. It is not the Nimble. The Nimble is well insulated. It starts when it's cold. It's reliable. It's powerful. It has a lot of storage. It has a working heater. It has all the things that I need to go and do a trip to the Arctic Circle. And my Land Rover is coming back to us in June. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, I really want to go and travel in extreme cold, in extreme terrain over a long distance. It's just part of my learning experience as an overland traveler. Doing West Africa was the same thing. That at the end of that journey, I had a skill set that I didn't have before. That is my motivation for doing this journey now, is because I can. Because I have the vehicle that is capable, that will forgive my ignorance until I catch up, until I learn. And that's why I want to do it. And because it's a challenge and it's going to be beautiful.
So was it the availability of the vehicle that made you think, I want to do this trip now?
Yeah, now's the time.
And you've never been?
I have, with the Land Rover. We went in September, October. It was cold, but it's not minus 30.
Okay.
Right.
All right. And where are you going exactly?
We're going to Tuktoyaktuk, which is on the Arctic Ocean. It's on the Canadian side. We're not going to go into Alaska. We're going to just carry on up. We're going to go to Dawson City and then carry on up through to Inuvik up to Tuktoyaktuk to the Arctic Ocean.
Okay. So I assume you have heated batteries. You have insulated batteries. What's the preparation
Right.
for this?
So I have heated batteries in mine because they're slung underneath the vehicle, and in fact, I actually have heated the holding tank pads underneath it as well to add a little bit of extra heat. One of the things about Nimble is the batteries are stored inside the envelope of the vehicle, and they back right onto the 75-gallon water tank, which is a huge heat sink. And so as long as the heater's running inside the vehicle, and you keep it in a situation like that, you're going to keep it running the whole time.
So the batteries are heated.
So the batteries are heated. And I would say that, for me, it's the adventure, and I like seeing nature at its fiercest. So if you want to see the Arctic, go in the middle of winter. See it when it's really in its full, magnificent glory. Same thing, like, I'll go to Death Valley. I've been to Death Valley when it's 122 degrees in the shade, because if you want to experience the desert, that's what you need to do to really experience the desert. Don't go to it when it's tame. Go to it when it's at its wildest.
I'm going to trust you on that one. So on that note, I'd like to thank both of you guys for coming on the podcast today.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's going to do it for today's episode. Be sure to subscribe to the Limitless Energy Podcast on any of your favorite podcast platforms.